Perhaps no one is more controversial in the community of art critique than MauLer. So why has this autistic Welshman drawn the ire of so many?
I've ruined the lives of so many. I can't be expected to remember them all.
Considering how reasonable and polite he can be, I'd wager it has less to do with the man himself and more to do with his ideas. And this is where I come in. I wish to discuss ideas here, not drama. Even though I have many criticisms of MauLer, I do love his content, and definitely think he's mostly on the right track. So what are MauLer's ideas? Put in simple terms, he believes there are objective ways to criticize art without appealing to emotion or subjective thoughts and opinions. Things like writing, acting, direction, and editing would all be specific examples of areas that can be accurately assessed and judged accordingly. The combination of all these aspects can then determine the quality of the work of art in question. Whew, I think I summed it up pretty well. That's his position in a brief enough manner.
It's MauLer.
Using this type of analysis, one would come to the conclusion that the Lord of the Rings movies are great films, and that The Room is a heavily flawed movie. Accurate assessments, to say the least. And even the most dogmatic subjectivist would have to concede when it comes to objective statements like Keanu Reeves played John Wick. And once you accept that, you can then judge the quality of his acting, if his role in the plot makes sense, if I'm gonna include this classic meme.
It's a matter of focus, commitment, sheer will.
And other aspects, given all that. And to address the elephant in the room, yes, you can hate objectively good art and love objectively bad art. I like Dark Souls 2, but in many ways, it's really objectively bad. So I am on board with much of what MauLer has to say. However, here are my issues with MauLer. First off, putting everything in one box or the wrong box. So, if you're going to assess the quality of a work of art, you have to know what it is trying to achieve. For example, take the movie Groundhog Day. Whether you judge it as a drama, a comedy, or a romance, that may have a drastic impact on your assessment of its quality. This is something that is annoyingly common in the metal scene. Every metalhead has their personal definition of what they think constitutes real metal, usually meaning whatever they think is just cool. In reality, metal is more or less a spectrum. If you want an interesting reaction, tell your local metalhead your favorite metal bands are Limp Bizkit and Queen. These bands are partially metal, but usually to such a small extent that most wouldn't think of them as metal. Someone might love Queen as a classic rock band, but think they make a really crappy metal band. How you assess it is everything. In much the same way, film critics tend to think they know what real movies are. This usually means popular classics from the 80s and 90s. Things like Jurassic Park, Back to the Future, and The Matrix. If a movie doesn't follow the formula of these films and other classics, it's considered bad. The prequels are perhaps the biggest victims of this mindset. Those movies were never trying to emulate the classic formula, yet they are judged as failures for not following the typical structure, rather than for being their own thing. I'd like to stress that I'm not stating the prequels should not be criticized, but they should be criticized for what they are, not for what they are not. Going back to the Souls series for a moment, Demon's Souls was groundbreaking, creating the Souls-like genre, which would become mainstream in the following decade. However, if one reviewed it back in 2009, and judged it as an RPG, one could argue it's objectively bad. It's too difficult, it has many unexplained mechanics, it doesn't let you save whenever, creating an unforgiving autosave system. You can't pause the game, some bosses are pushovers, but all of these supposed flaws are actually what makes the game great. We must judge things based on what they are going for. Demon's Souls wanted to grant the player a challenge with a genuine sense of accomplishment upon completion, as well as create a world that would take genuine effort in order to even begin to understand this Lovecraftian mystery that is beyond the comprehension of most. The prequels are paying homage to old school cinema from the 20s to the 60s, while telling a visual story of the collapse of civilization and the fall of a tragic hero, all in a way that the whole family can enjoy. And most importantly, Queen is not trying to be a brutal deathcore band. Point being, Don't lump these things in with things they are not. Second, a marriage between objectivity and subjectivity. These two are often considered opposites, but are actually reliant on each other. As MauLer often rightfully points out, these subjectivist types rely on the statement, everything is subjective, to be objective in itself. In much the same way, however, those in the objective camp assume everyone should share in their subjective values. MauLer subjectively values good writing. He subjectively values consistency, and things making sense in the world the story takes place in. I hate to break it to you guys, but your opposition does not value this. They prioritize things like diversity and meaningless emotional payoffs over good storytelling on their hierarchy of subjective values. They also subjectively value the opinions of critics over the opinions of the average person, or even their own opinions. What I can infer MauLer really wants is an agreed-upon intersubjectivity where we can all reliably and objectively be on the same page, more or less. This is why the subjectivists say that MauLer thinks his opinions are objective, because many people do not share his values. Even though I'm mostly on MauLer's side of the culture war, that is a point worth debunking rather than mocking, because the accusation has some merit as it stands. So, I'd like to present my own objective framework based on my subjective values, of which, if we intersubjectively agreed on, the world would be a better place to live. 4 main points: time, beauty, truth, and freedom. Time is the easiest to quantify, so I'll start there. Most people don't like wasting their time. You could say that's objective enough to make it fact, but some genuinely don't value their time subjectively. However, I think it's important enough for us to agree on. Take the recent Assassin's Creed games, for example. I'm sure there is a fine game in there somewhere. However, it's 80 hours too long. This is where the time assessment comes in. Good art makes good use of your time. Bad art wastes your time. Now settle down, long man. That doesn't mean longer is always worse. My favorite genre of music is progressive metal, even when judged by my own criteria here, because the songs I enjoy don't get repetitive or boring to me. I think this point is the most straightforward, so moving on. Beauty. How does one objectively assess beauty? Beauty is life-affirming. This can be things that are attractive, wholesome, or cute, for examples. Something that makes one look positively on life, either for themselves or others. A sick old person is not very life-affirming, therefore not as beautiful as a healthy young person. A forest is more life-affirming than a barren wasteland. Gothic architecture is more beautiful than some run-down house with boarded-up windows and graffiti all over it. You get the point. Dark Souls is more life-affirming and beautiful than Bloodborne, despite both dealing with nihilism. Beauty this way is a useful tool. Truth. Sometimes at odds with beauty, truth is how accurate and real the work of art is. This is why some people hate overproduced music. It might be more beautiful, but it's dishonest. Autotune sounds fake to people, and out of touch with truth. It's also why I can enjoy depressive, suicidal black metal, nihilistic video games, and messed up art films. These things are very ugly, but speak volumes about bleak truths. Having a work of art that is both an example of beauty and truth is very impressive to pull off. Freedom. Freedom can be everything from creativity and originality to promoting values of liberty. Art of individual agency and free will. Even if a work of art is a waste of time, ugly, and not very truthful, it may still have some merit if a work of art is a work of freedom. Watching a meme compilation is an example of that. Good for a cheap laugh, not much else. Ideally, art should achieve all 4 to be a masterpiece that respects your time, is life-affirming, truthful, and free-spirited. Crap art is a time-wasting, ugly, lying, unoriginal propaganda piece. But enough about The Last Jedi. To fight against those that promote lies, destroy beauty, erase freedom, and quite frankly just waste all our time. To push through the boundaries, and to preserve art that makes life worth living. This is the end goal. Perhaps too lofty of a goal for a bunch of shitposters talking about Bilbo Baggins and Tonald, but nevertheless, this is the war of art we are fighting.